I would encourage any kid to, and it doesn't just go for mammal collections. I don't care if you want to take care of aquarium fishes, if you want to play golf, if you want to follow the Grateful Dead. Find an institution that does what you are interested in and volunteer. And that,
I'll tell you how I got started, and this will illustrate how many people in this building got started. I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, in East Africa, and my dad worked for a bank, and so we were posted over there, and I became very interested in the butterflies that were flying around Nairobi in the gardens there. Nairobi's about the same elevation as Denver and has very lush gardens near the equator, and there are lots of very beautiful swallowtails that fly around the gardens of Nairobi. And I was starting to collect them and pin them out and try and identify what butterflies I was getting, looking through a book and then keeping the data. And I was just a little nerdy, geeky scientist, you know. And one day I caught a butterfly that I had never seen before, and I was looking through the book, and I couldn't see it in the book at all. So I thought I had a new species to science. So I told my mom. She came home one day, and she was volunteering at the National Museums of Kenya, which is actually a wonderful museum in Nairobi, and had a huge collection of both mammals, birds, butterflies, ethnographic material, and she was working in the ethnography department. So she comes home, and I had my butterfly pinned out in a little box, and I said, "Mom, I have a new species to science." And she said, "Really? Well, you probably want to go tell the curator of insects about this down at the museum." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Come on, let's go." So we drove down to the museum, and she takes me around the back of the building, and there in the back of the building was a 2-story red brick building, and there in the back of the building was this metal set of stairs that led up to this great big iron door at the back, solid iron door. She said, "That's where the entomology department is, where they study insects, up there. Off you go." And I said, "You're not coming with me?" She said, "Nope, you're on your own." So I remember taking my new species to science, and I went up these metal stairs, and I got to the door, and I banged on the door, and suddenly I heard the bolt shoot from behind the door, and the door opened up. And here was this huge 6'6" Irishman in a bright red beard and a white lab coat. And he looks at me and he says, "Yes." And I said, "Sir, I have a new species to science." And I showed him the butterfly. And he looks at the butterfly, and he looks at me, and he looks at the butterfly, and he looks at me, and he says, "Follow me." So we go into this room, huge room, and down every wall were cases stacked 3 high, and cases down the middle of this room. And this scientist starts opening up these cases and pulling out the drawer of every case, and in every drawer were hundreds of butterflies that looked just like mine. And he says, "You know, that's probably one of the most common butterflies we have here in Nairobi." And I was crestfallen. I felt about this high, and he looked at me and says, "Yeah, well, that's a common butterfly, but I'll tell you what, I had never seen a better preserved specimen prepared by an amateur like you. How'd you do it?" And I said, "Well, I got this old piece of styrofoam and cut a groove, and then I stole some of my mom's pins from her sewing kit, and I prepped out the butterfly like that." He said, No. Here, we just got a new shipment of insect pins, professional insect pins from London. Here's a packet, and here's a spreading board, and you see how you wrote that tag right there? Don't ever write the month in numerals. Always write it out in letters, because the date that you wrote is confusing to somebody from England as compared to somebody from Nairobi or from America. And you want that specimen to be available 200 years from now. And I remember staring at this guy and thinking, to this day, I can close my eyes and I can feel the switch inside of me just being turned on. Click. I knew right then and there that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so here I am in that same room with the cases going down the hall, up one side and down the other, and it's not butterflies, it's mammals, but it's the same gig.